I read so many great books in 2023. For this year's top 5 list, I decided to just focus on sci-fi and fantasy, but that didn't make it any easier to decide. In spot number 5 is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This Cosmere novel was an absolute joy to read. It's Sanderson at his best while also expanding my idea of the kinds of stories that he's capable of telling. It's unlike anything we've seen in the Cosmere before, and I had so much fun reading it. It follows Tress, who's a girl from an island in the verdant sea. Sanderson says it's inspired by stories like The Princess Bride and what that might look like if it was a fantasy story. It's not like a one-for-one retelling, but he has said that it's inspired by it. Tress embarks on a dangerous quest to try and save the man she loves from an evil sorceress, and she meets a wonderful cast of characters along the way. The magic system is really strong in this one, which is definitely one of Sanderson's strong suits. Tress's planet is covered in vast oceans of spores that rain down from the planet's closely orbiting moons. How cool is that? These spores are super volatile whenever they come in contact with water. The green spores that make up the verdant sea explode into like giant gripping vines and stuff, so you can fill in the gaps in your imagination of what it might look like when someone falls into the spores. This is one of Brandon Sanderson's secret projects, which got massive hype from the gigantic Kickstarter campaigns. And this definitely lived up to the fanfare. I really liked this book. At spot number 4, we have Reaper Man by Terry Pratchett. Reaper Man is the second death book in the Discworld series. I read the first one last year, that one's called Mort, and I finally got around to the second one this year. I'm super glad I did. While Reaper Man was very different from Mort, there was a lot to love about it in different ways. The book starts with Death learning that he has finite time left in the world. In other words, he gets a life, he gets time, and in turn it means that he's gonna die. He then decides to go MIA and just live on a farm and work and learn what it means to be alive, to be human, and to have mortality in that way. This was an absolute delight to read. His joy at discovering life is so heartwarming and meaningful. We also meet Wendell Poons, who is an incredibly old wizard at the Unseen University in Ankh-Morpork. Right at the beginning of the book, he dies, except death isn't there for reasons we know, so his passing is kind of like botched in a way. We watch as the hijinks ensue. What happens in a world where nothing can live forever and also nothing can die properly? As always, Pratchett's writing style is the unholy child of humor and profound meaning. In all of his work, you can't have one without the other. Before we get to my top 3 sci-fi and fantasy books of the year, I wanted to quickly do some honorable mentions of books that almost made the list but didn't. The first of these is Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. I had a great time reading this book, but there were just a couple things that bumped it off the list for me. If you want to see my full spoiler-filled thoughts, I made a whole dedicated review just about Untethered Sky. Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. This book has everything that I love about science fiction. It was a great read and I loved it for a lot of reasons. That said, it felt a little slow, the pace wasn't what I was hoping it would be. There were just a couple of nitpicks like that pushed it into the 6 or 7 spot for the year. Still really good, but it didn't make the list. And the last honorable mention is This Was Our Pact by Ryan Andrews. This middle grade graphic novel was awesome. I loved it for a lot of reasons, but it didn't quite stick with me the way that my top 5 had. Again, really awesome book. I'm so glad I read it, but it just didn't have the same lasting impact as the others for me. Okay, now it's time for the top 3. Okay, I am so excited. At spot number 3, coming in hot, is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. Now, this tiny novella packs a lot of punch. This is one of my favorite recent reads, but I'm being careful not to have recency bias come into play here. I cross-referenced it with all my other books to see if it actually was one of my favorites. And lo and behold, it was. This book set out to accomplish a couple of things, and it accomplished those things with record-breaking levels of finesse. It's the story of an empress's rise to power and influence, as told from the perspective of one of her servants who had a really close personal relationship with her. That servant has such an insightful view of the events that happened, and a perspective that we wouldn't have gotten from the rich and powerful. It only could have been told by that main character. It's a really cool and subversive authorial choice, and it's something that I haven't seen a lot in fantasy before. It's a voice that might be considered small and insignificant in some stories, especially real life. And to see it brought to the forefront here was a breath of fresh air, and I am so excited to continue this series. It's poetic, it's heart-wrenching, it's beautiful. It takes place in a setting that's reminiscent of Imperial China, and there were points in this where it felt like I was reading a Chinese classic. I'm thinking of 6 Records of a Floating Life by Shun Fu. It's really light on the fantasy elements, but they do exist and they contribute to the story in calculated ways. The Empress of Salt and Fortune comes from a series that ostensibly can be read in any order. I chose to go with publication order, even though some of the premises of the other other books were more appealing to me, but loving this as much as I did, that just makes me even more excited to try out the others, knowing how cool their premises are. At number 2, we have The Tombs of Atuan by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's becoming more and more common for me to like the second book in a series even better than the first book. That's happened a couple times in the past few years. That was definitely the case with The Tombs of Atuan. This is the second book in the Earthsea cycle, and it follows up A Wizard of Earthsea, which has a little more name recognition. I have no notes on this book. Ursula K. Le Guin ate and left no crumbs. This book follows our protagonist named Tanar. Tanar was proclaimed at a very young age to be the reincarnation of the High Priestess of the Nameless Ones. She's then taken to the Tombs of Atuan to be raised in this sisterhood of priests and trained to be the High Priestess of the Nameless Ones, a really high honor in her culture, but a kind of like occult and creepy sort of role. First of all, that's freaking dope. Second of all, the vibes of this book cannot be topped, I'm convinced. Tanar's an awesome main character. She's like a weirdo kid who's super curious about the world, but also has to like perform blood sacrifices and enjoys spending time in pure darkness in an underground labyrinth. And she loves it. Ged, who's the main character of the first book, appears in this one as well, but he's not the main character. It's really cool to see Ged, who we know super well, from a different character's perspective, and to see their plot lines kind of overlap a bit. All of that serves to make these characters way more three-dimensional and show us the world of Earthsea in new depth. Big fan of this book, and I cannot wait to get to the next 2 in the series. And last but not least, my favorite sci-fi and fantasy book of the year, On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. I know, I didn't see it coming either. A graphic novel is my favorite piece of sci-fi or fantasy that I've read all year. Now, this book follows our protagonist Mia as she goes through 2 timelines at different points in her life. The first storyline follows her as she's joining a interstellar construction team, basically. Their job is to preserve and restore and prepare different outer space sites for construction projects. In a graphic novel, this makes for some beautiful artwork and really cool outer space scenes. The dynamic of that team is so wonderful and wholesome. If you like stories with a found family, this is a book that definitely centers that. The other storyline follows Mia in middle school before she joins the construction team. This part is an adorable and heart-wrenching YA first love story. We see what it's like for Mia to experience romantic love for the first time, and we watch her and Grace go through the growing pains of learning how to love. Meanwhile, Grace has her own family drama, and that's equally as interesting as the other plot lines. I don't rate books consistently enough for the numbers to mean anything, but for what it's worth, this book is a clean 5 stars. It sets a standard in my mind of the literary prowess that a graphic novel can attain when used right. And this was by far the biggest surprise I had all year from a book. I just picked this up from the library. I didn't know. I loved cozying up with On a Sunbeam on long winter nights. If you've never dipped your toe into the world of graphic novels, you are seriously missing out. So that has been my top 5 sci-fi and fantasy books of 2023. Thank you so much for reading with me this year. It's been a pleasure sharing it with all of you across all my platforms. If you made it this far in the video, I think you'll be a great fit to be a subscriber of this channel. Got plenty more awesome videos planned for the new year, and I hope you'll follow me along for those. Big thank you to my patrons. They make it possible to do what I do here, and every subscription goes a long way to allowing me to do what I do. If you'd like to become a patron and get some additional perks, check out the link in the description. This past week, I actually tried reading 50 pages a day for the entire week, so if you'd like to see how that went, click here, check out that video. I think it's a pretty good one. Okay, that's all. See ya.